7.9 Understand and participate in change management processes. It's another short task with no subtasks, but an extremely important task for the exam and, of course, in real-world security. As my mother used to say, it's the only thing you can count on is change. It's the only constant. So let's dive in, make sure we feel comfortable with the objectives of this task, and as always, if I don't go deep enough for you, use that prompt at the end. Change management covers a lot of ground, so let's cover just some key elements here. First, active participation in the Change Control Board. As a CISSP professional, your role includes attending these meetings and making sure all proposed changes are thoroughly reviewed for their security implications before they're approved. You're not just a bystander, you're an advocate for security. Expect the exam to test your understanding on how this participation works and how decisions are made regarding changes that could impact security, which is to start with a risk assessment of proposed changes. Before any change can go live, you need to assess it from a security perspective. Does this change introduce new vulnerabilities? Does it impact current controls? The exam will expect you to be familiar with the process of conducting a risk assessment for every proposed change, evaluating security risks and operational impacts, and identifying if any additional controls are needed. Documentation and communication of changes is another very vital aspect. All changes must be documented thoroughly, including the risk assessment, reasons for the change, and implementation plans. This documentation should be communicated to all relevant stakeholders. For the exam, this is a key point. Transparency and alignment across the organization is crucial. Next, we have testing and validation of changes. Changes shouldn't be deployed without first being tested in a controlled environment. The exam is likely to touch on how testing fits into the change management process, ensuring that new changes don't introduce new vulnerabilities or disrupt existing controls. And finally, the post-implementation review. After the change has been implemented, it's essential to go back and review its effectiveness. Were there any unforeseen issues? What can we learn to improve the process in the future? The exam might ask you about the importance of these reviews in ensuring continuous improvement of your change management processes. And remember, processes are interconnected. They create a system that helps maintain the security and stability of your organization even as change occurs. All right. Even though it's a brief one, I want to go over and summarize anyway and highlight some important things. All right, quickly summarizing again, we talked about participation in the Change Control Board. Make sure that we're an active participant in identifying any security issues very early in the process. And then we talked about performing a comprehensive risk assessment of the proposed change. And then finally, we talked about the need for documentation and communication. Of course, we talked about testing and validation and post-implementation as well. But in summary, change management isn't just a series of isolated tasks. It's a connected, cyclical process that ensures the security and stability of an organization. Remember, the exam will emphasize the holistic nature of security practices, and change management plays a big part in that. All right, so you know what to do. Use this prompt on the next slide. Yeah, get in there, ask them things about scheduling changes, testing changes, and some changes, might be very difficult to test in a controlled environment. A lot of times you have to test things live, and so we'll talk about, or we might remember from other application stuff about the difference between static and dynamic testing. So make sure you mix those things together from testing. Alrighty, see you in the next module.